Hey guys, so for this video, I want to cover all the best in-game settings for Fortnite Chapter 2. The last time I made a video like this was around 4 months ago when the settings tab looked completely different. So because of all the new setting options they added and the fact they decided to give it a makeover, I've gone ahead and made an updated guide. The big difference though is that I'm going to be covering console and controller settings as well. I usually don't do this because I'm on keyboard and mouse, but after researching and talking to some top tier controller players, I think I can help everyone out regardless of what platform they play on and what input they use. So without further ado, let's start at the front with your video settings. At the top, under display, there's your window mode, which you always want on full screen. Playing on full screen will make your game run faster, meaning more FPS, and will make your game feel more responsive because you will have less input lag. Next, your resolution is mainly preference. I'm currently on 1920 by 1080 because I'm a content creator and I gotta make my game look pretty. However, if you're a competitor or you just want better frames, a much better option is 1600 by 900. Pros like Ghost Bizzle and Booga's brother use it, and it honestly doesn't look too bad. Plus, 1600 by 900 is not stretched because the aspect ratio remains 16 by 9. This means you don't lose any FOV, yet you still get the benefit of an extra 20 to 30 FPS. Then, the other option you have is to use a stretched res by changing up the game files. I'll leave a link to the video I made showing how to play on stretched in Chapter 2 in case you want to try it. I personally enjoyed it a lot, and I know there's a bunch of different pros like Mitro, Young Calc, and FaZe Martos that use stuff like 1798 by 1080. Just be aware, you do lose some FOV on stretched, but get better performance and smoother overall gameplay. Moving on to frame limit, and that depends entirely on the refresh rate of your monitor. My rule you want to follow is to cap your FPS at the next highest value above your refresh rate. For example, if you play on 144 Hz, cap it at 160, and if you play at 75 Hz, then cap it at 120. This is so you get smoother gameplay while also not getting big stutters and frame rate drops from playing on unlimited. In the following section called graphics, your brightness is again all preference. I use the default of 100%, but you may like it a little brighter or dimmer than that. User interface contrast is an example of a setting option that was added in Chapter 2. All it does is change how saturated the colors are in your settings and menus, not your actual gameplay. Thus, because it's honestly not that important, it's also preference. Colorblind mode used to be really important. If you guys remember, all of them let you see in the storm way easier than before. That, however, changed in Chapter 2 because they made the storm transparent without any colorblind mode. So in the end, use whatever you please and whichever colors you prefer. Now onto the graphics quality setting, and I do not advise anyone to use the auto set option. This essentially benchmarks your PC and then spits out what it thinks you should use. The thing is, it usually wants you to play on stuff that makes the game look better. We do not care about that. What we care about is better performance, which is why you want to set the quality preset option to low. This automatically sets all the graphic options that I've covered like 9 million times to lower or off and gets you the highest possible frames. The only adjustment I'd make is putting 3D resolution to 100% so it doesn't look completely terrible, and then if you can't stand anti-aliasing on off, put it to low or medium. By the way, you do not need to put textures on epic like you did before because Fortnite finally fixed the FPS issue from earlier in the season. Last section is your advanced graphics, which for some reason starts with VSync. In-game VSync is quite literally the worst setting in the game, so please turn it off. Having it on will make your frames worse and will give you a ton of input delay. Motion blur is another garbage setting that will do the same exact thing and destroy your performance. Turn that off as well. Show FPS, keep on to see your frames. DirectX version is an interesting one because it varies from person to person. I've only had good experiences with DirectX 12, even while it's been in beta. It's made my frames way more stable and consistent than DirectX 11. Be aware though, this does not mean it's gonna do the same thing for you. That's why I advise trying out DX12 and then switching back to DX11 if your game starts to crash or your FPS is worse. Allow multi-threaded rendering should be on for most people with numerous cores. Not Snuffy found you got a 30% FPS gain with multi-threaded rendering on compared to off with DX12 enabled on top of that. So just like your DX12 version, turn it on and see how it affects your specific setup. The final setting here is called Use GPU Crash Debugging, and all it does is send info to the developers if your game crashes. It will cost you some performance, which is why I leave it off. On to the next page, aka your game settings. Toggle sprint you want off because we don't want to sprint on a toggle. What we want is to always be sprinting and to be using sprint by default. Please boys, it's 2020. If I find out you're not using sprint by default, I'm gonna call Epic and tell Donald Mustard on you. Seriously though, stop living in Season 2 and turn it off ASAP. Sprint cancels reloading you want off, as you definitely want to be able to reload while moving. Then auto open doors turn on. Reason being is anytime you mess up and make a door edit, you'll automatically go through it without losing any momentum. Plus, you can still open doors normally with your interact key. After that, in the combat section, hold to swap pickup I recommend having off. It's just way too annoying because the game will swap things when you don't want them to. Toggle targeting makes it so you don't have to hold down your targeting key while ADSing, which in turn does give you less control and make things like aiming down sight while taking a pump shot really awkward, so turn it off. Mark danger when targeting refers to the little red mark when you ping, therefore turn it on. Auto pick up weapons, however, turn off unless you like picking up every single weapon and item you walk over. Finally, auto sort consumables leave on, as this puts all your heals and shield on the right side of your inventory for you. For the building section, put reset building choice on for consistency and turbo building on because we're not in Season 2. Edit on release is preference. I use it and it technically is faster than edit on release off, unless of course you use double edit binds. The thing is, edit on release can be hard to master and feel bad on high ping. None of these random settings really matter up to Nvidia highlights and peripheral lighting. I advise turning them both off for better frames. Tap to search you really should have on. It frees up your finger while you interact with stuff and there's no disadvantages to it. Lastly, turn all your replays off if you want a solid FPS boost. I just keep it on for the thumbnails and because I'm a content creating bot. Your game UI or HUD options are a completely new tab. HUD scale is technically preference, just please do not make it anything too small. Anything above 75 or 80% is good. Then I recommend leaving everything except quest progress indicator on because all of it is extremely important and vital for helping you in game. If you notice though, I do have reticle indicator off. This is the little mark next to your crosshair that tells you how many bullets you have left. Most pros like Benji Fishy and Mongrel use it because it's more information, but a lot also don't. So in the end, it's all up to you. Following that, mouse and keyboard sensitivities are all preference as well. I play on 400 DPI, 13%, which is the same as 0.13, and then 0.225 targeting and 0.275 scoped. I did make a video recently saying you should raise your sense, mainly because I felt most players were scared to do it. Realize though that low, mid, and high sense are all equally good, so find whatever sense you like, hopefully using the PSA method, and stick to it. Now for the controller scrimma settings, starting with auto run, we have sprint by default enabled, so that really doesn't matter. Builder Pro we do not use, so this does not matter as well, and then edit hold time set to the lowest just because. Vibration you should have off because it can mess up your aim and make your gameplay a little shakier. All these settings are grayed out as we have the advanced option on, and surprisingly enough, yes, I do recommend Legacy. Legacy versus linear is probably the biggest debate in the controller community at the minute. Creative warriors love how smooth linear is and how great their mid-range tracking is, while controller scrimmas like Unknown Army and Wavy Jacob are 200 pumping everyone with Legacy. Therefore, because my channel is more oriented towards getting better at the battle royale game mode, I would use Legacy. It's just way too good from both close range and long range to pass up for smoother builds and edits. On top of that, when you have by far the best controller player in the world on Legacy, it's hard not to switch onto it yourself. Continuing on, aim assist is on, of course, and edit mode aim assist is off. The rest is all sensitivity preference that you guys can either test for yourself or go and see what other top controller players are using. Also, turn foot controller off. I'm not going to go in depth into the sound settings as they honestly don't matter too much. The only important ones are sound quality, which can be on high or low, and then 3D headphones, which unless you have an expensive studio pair, turn off. Mouse and keyboard keybinds, as you guys know, are going to be different for everyone. I'll quickly show mine off since I don't remember the last time I did. Just realize though, these are not the best or most optimal binds you can get. If you want to see what I think are the best possible binds in the game, then watch this video I made from a few weeks ago. It includes my overall keybind philosophy, as well as the keybinds I would switch to had I started playing Fortnite today. Finally, the last section are controller keybinds. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, so I'm going to show the best keybinds for a standard controller, no claw. These are from my boy Rody, who made an amazing video detailing controller keybinds for everyone, regardless of if you use a scuff, play claw, or with a standard controller. Make sure you check that out after this, as he goes more in depth and actually knows what he's talking about. Overall guys, those are the best in-game settings for Fortnite Chapter 2. So if you found the video useful or you learned something new, then do be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and to turn on my notifications. Shout out to everyone using code Jerian. I really do appreciate all you guys watching and supporting me, even when the game is insanely boring. Otherwise, that's it from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.